Tick-tock, time to rock. How is everyone doing this evening or morning or afternoon, wherever you may be? We are here talking about a pretty important topic, given what's going on in the world right now, and for a long time, really. I'm David Wood. You all know me. With me is Vocab Malone. Who are you, Vocab?
I am an urban apologist, hip-hop head, and nerd. And I do a show called Street Apologist, where I serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. Subscribe, youtube.com/Vocab Malone.
I did not know he had that entire little spiel ready and waiting. Is that your new thing? You going to say that? You say that every time now?
And then when I end, I say, join us for the next episode, guaranteed to make apologetics fun again.
Make apologetics fun again.
We put the fun back in fundamentalism.
Wow. All right, no more intros for Vocab.
And I'm a Calvinist.
Hey, I keep getting called a Calvinist now. You've seen that, right?
Yeah. Well,
It's funny. I get called a Calvinist and a Jesuit. So they're on pretty different sides of the spectrum there. So, but that's pretty cool that I can be labeled a Calvinist and a Jesuit. One thing I also get labeled pretty regularly is a Jew.
What?
Yeah. That's I am 2.7% though. I am 2.7%, but still I'm amazed at no. And here's what's interesting. It's usually Jews who say that, right? They're like, we know you're a Jew. They'll come running up to me on the street if they have they'll set up. This was more in New York, but they would have areas set up like to give out information, and they're trying to. It's like Jews of like you had the Reformed or the Orthodox or so on. They'd be trying to get Jews to come over to sort of come to their presentation or something like that. Anyway, I would get called over quite frequently every time. But we're here with an actual Jew.
I thought this was Santa Claus.
I didn't have time to grow the side locks. Otherwise, I would have been all set.
Now, people might actually recognize you on this channel and not remember where they recognize you from. Where would they recognize you from on this channel?
Oh, we did a series. I was the Jewish doctor. Okay.
Jeff played the Jewish doctor in Islamicize Me. We thought it was funny. We thought it would be funny to have these guys who had converted to Islam. Nevertheless, whenever something goes horribly wrong, they keep getting sick from all of Muhammad's rulings that they're following. We thought it would be funny if they were going to a Jewish doctor to take care of them, because that actually happens in the world. All right, why don't you tell everyone about yourself, Jeff?
I do.
Are you actually a Jewish doctor?
I'm finishing the dissertation, but I won't be that kind of doctor.
Not a medical doctor. So you play one on YouTube, but not in real life.
No.
All right.
You'll be the kind of doctor that you can say, hey, could you take a look at my syllogisms? Not, hey, can you take a look at my syphilis?
I was thinking that I'd either go by metaphysician or epistemologist, because they both sound great at cocktail parties.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Since we know you're regularly attending cocktail parties.
So you're what would be called a Messianic Jew, right?
Yes.
Now, why don't you tell everyone what that is?
That means that I'm a Jewish person that believes that Jesus is the Messiah of Israel and has fulfilled the promises related to that first coming. I recognize there'll be another.
Mm-hmm.
And that's generally, more specifically, it's used of those who go to a Messianic congregation. We don't actually attend a Messianic congregation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm using it in the general sense of Messianic is to avoid some of the connotations the
Mm-hmm.
Jewish community has with Christian,
Mm-hmm.
which are more historic than they are theological.
Mm-hmm. So you would be a biological Jew who's a follower of Jesus, a Messianic in that sense, but not necessarily as part of a congregation.
Not as part of a congregation. Do we keep some customs? Yeah, we do keep
Mm-hmm.
some customs, but we never really found one,
Mm-hmm.
and we were much more comfortable. I've walked in the evangelical circles longer than
Mm-hmm.
anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So.
One thing I thought was interesting, I went to Israel for I think 8 or 9 days recently, and I met several Jews who weren't Messianic Jews, did not believe in Jesus, and yet they had a favorable view of Jesus, which I thought was interesting because I hadn't met anyone like that. But there were several Jews who viewed Jesus not as Lord, not as someone who died for their sins, but as someone who challenged the religious establishment of his day, challenged a sort of hypocritical, super strict, you can't heal on the Sabbath. And their view was Jesus was right, even though they don't believe that he's Lord and so on. But they were like, he was right, and they were actually saying, and he won. They're saying his way won in Judaism. They say you're not going to go to a hospital, anywhere in the Jewish world, and they're going to say, no, we can't do anything on the Sabbath because that would be violating rules and stuff like that. So it was just interesting to me that there were Jews who didn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah, but who nevertheless viewed him as having a positive role in the history of Judaism. So, and you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah, actually, there's been what we call the Jewish reclamation of Jesus, because his writings are now being viewed through the historic context of Second Temple Judaism. And what's happening is people are looking at his teachings instead of having preconceived notions. Instead of thinking that he was, possibly Swedish like I did before I came to faith, they're actually reading his teachings and they're saying he fits into the milieu of the Second Temple period. He fits historically in there. One of the favorite guys is Daniel Bayarin, who I really appreciated, and he made this statement that essentially, if for no other reason, if you were going to understand Second Temple Judaism, you would have to look at Jesus's teachings.
Interesting.
Hold on. Jeff, did you just say that you're a Jew?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, it's from the Boom Boom Room.
Have you seen any of Muhammad's Boom Boom Rooms?
It's from the Boom Boom Room.
I've seen not too many of those.
That's what Muhammad says whenever he hears the word Jews.
Okay.
Whenever he has to say that word, he goes like this. Jew?
Well, you sound just like him, Vocab. That's weird.
I've been working on my impression.
Been working on your impression of Muhammad from the Boom Boom Room?
Hey, I don't know if they're joking. Someone said the camera lights are bright, but they might be saying that because I got my shades on. I told the live chat, if anybody tells me in a live chat that I need to take out my shades, timed out. It's that kind of night.
Oh, you're gentle. I will block them for saying that. I would just
guy.
block them permanently from the channel for saying something like that.
These two guys can wear their glasses. I can wear mine.
Are you looking at it on there? Does it look fine? Does it look fine on yours?
Yeah, you could put the
lights are fine?
You could put the camera down a little bit, and then...
What do you mean, camera down a little bit?
Yeah, to not have the top of the bookshelf. There's a little bit of white on top of the screen.
How's that?
I don't like it. I'll tell you.
I said, how's that? Oh, yeah, you're on a delay there.
Yeah.
Hey, we should start checking out some of these comments by all the people who really love the Jews. Fods here says, Jews created the pornography industry. Did you guys know that?
Jews created the pornography industry?
Now, by the way, this is a perfect example of kind of why I wanted to do this live stream. Think about this. We're talking about anti-Semitic attacks, right? They're happening kind of. Let me draw this parallel. Here's what's interesting. You have Christians, and wherever you go in the world, people find a reason to hate Christians, even if it's in completely different environments. There's always some way, some basis for really hating Christians. So you can go to the communist world, right? You can go to China, communist China, and even before that, you could, if you're talking about the Soviet Union, you go there, and what's the reason for hating Christians? Well, Christians are standing in the way of the evolution of society, right? Because they're lulling people to sleep so that the people do not rise up, right? So Christians are just enemy numero uno there. You go to the Muslim world where Christians are committing shirk, right? You got to hate Christians. They're committing shirk. We talk to Muslims who say they would rather their kids convert to atheism than Christianity. You go to the West here, and Christians are standing in the way of science, and if we don't do something about the Christians, well, Christians are just going to destroy science and ruin the world. And so it's no matter where you go, everyone's got a reason to hate Christians wherever you go in the world. But you find something similar among Jews, in that there's always a reason to hate Jews. And what's been disturbing is the recent attacks. So we're familiar with jihadi attacks, right? We're familiar with jihadis praising Hitler and calling for the death of Jews and so on. And we've heard about that before, but now recently, over the past couple of years especially, now you've got these white supremacist attacks on synagogues and so on. So they're going out and killing people. Hey, these guys are standing in the way of our pure white state or white leadership or whatever they're doing. But hey, they're perfectly willing to go into a synagogue and gun people down. But now you've got the Black Hebrew Israelites. Now you've got the Black Hebrew Israelites. So notice, these are completely radically different groups, right? I mean, it's Islam and the Hebrew Israelites and white supremacists. These are guys who are on completely different areas of like theological spectrums and so on, and yet they're all targeting Jews. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to focus on this. And notice the response. This is why I pulled this up. Hey guys, we're going to talk about all these people who really want to kill Jews. Jews created the pornography industry, right? I'm sure I haven't even scrolled through the comments, but how many of these am I going to see? How many comments like this am I going to see? We're talking about killing and slaughtering people, and you'll come up with like 50 different complaints about Jews. Why in the name of common sense would you do that, right? By the way, this is true of everyone. If a bunch of Muslims had just been slaughtered or something like that, we're talking about, hey, we need to watch what's going on here because a bunch of Muslims just got slaughtered. And you're like, but Muslims did this or Muslims did that. What are you talking about? We're talking about those Muslims who just got slaughtered, right? That's what we would be talking about. Similarly, let's pretend this is true. And Jews invented pornography and created the pornography industry, and they're behind all of it. Let's imagine that's true. What would that mean, given the topic here? That Hebrew Israelites should go slaughter Jews? That jihadis should go gun down Jews? That white supremacists should run up into Jewish synagogues and gun down Jews? Because that's kind of the topic. And it sounds like you're tossing this forward as a defense of those kinds of things. So anyway, that's why I would find this disturbing. No matter, I could say, hey, oh my goodness, a bunch of Jews just got slaughtered in front of me. And I am positive I would see a bunch of comments. Well, they deserve it because this, and this, and that, which would have nothing to do with the Jews that just got slaughtered. And vocab, before we even talk about those, we could have pulled up the video, but before we even talk about that attack by Hebrew Israelites, there was some footage posted of how the surrounding community reacted. Is that the video that I saw?
Yeah.
The surrounding community, people were recording after the attack, and they were recording the things that were said by the surrounding community. So not by the people who did the attack, by people in that community who were trying to find out what was going on, and they found out that it was Jews that was killed. How were people reacting to that?
I played this video on the live stream that we did like 2 days ago on this issue of the attacks in the kosher deli in Jersey City, and I played this video, and somebody said to a Jewish guy who was filming, "Was it your people that were killed?" He said, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, so it was your kind?" He says, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, that's good." He's like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, if there's 4 people who are Jews who are dead, that's great." It was dead serious. And then another lady said, "Get the bleepity out of here." And then someone else said, "Hey, what's going on here?" And then somebody was saying, "We never had any problems like this until the Jews came and said now there's people dead because of Jewish shenanigans." And it was just really disheartening to see, why there's like people who literally their bodies are just turning cold, like their blood is on the street. People are having these really heartless, callous comments. So it is disturbing to see that happen. I mean, it's disturbing to see that anywhere, but I don't know. I think it's probably especially disturbing to see in the United States of America because you would hope this is like a safe haven for all peoples and kind of thing. But yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And that was just what was recorded when that guy happened to be filming, right? Who knows? You know what I mean? Jeez, Somebody, by the way, speaking of Jews, Messianic Jews, somebody said Dr. Brown should be on this live chat. I will be on Dr. Brown's show Tuesday to talk about the attacks. So it's just what we're talking about. I'm going to be on a show Tuesday to talk about it.
You should ask him if you can repost that discussion on your own channel.
Oh, yeah. It'll be radio, but yeah, I will. Okay.
Yep. And so, we're gonna go through some more comments and stuff. I just want to point out over and over again, you see this sort of thing as well. The Talmud blasphemes Jesus directly, and some people will just mention Talmud, right? Notice the assumption again. We're talking, hey, there are epidemic levels of anti-Jewish hate crimes, right, guys? I'm hoping that the people here in general would be the sort of people who, hey, even if I disagree with people, even if I think people are wrong on this or that issue, I don't want them being slaughtered. I mean, see, that's my view of like Muslims, right? I talk about Islam all the time. I believe Muhammad's a false prophet, that the Quran's not the word of God. I try to correct false claims about Islam. I don't want Muslims being killed. If Muslims were being killed, I wouldn't immediately start tossing around reasons that hey, you shouldn't be objecting to their deaths, because would never cross my mind. So I'm hoping that is not the case. That, oh yeah, you've got Hebrew Israelites walking in and gunning down Jews, but hey, the Talmud, you got the Talmud. The Talmud blasphemes Jesus, so who are we to complain about people being slaughtered? I'm hoping we're not like that, right? Especially if you actually believe that you're a Christian, if you actually are convinced that you're a Christian. And you're someone who should be taking Jesus' words seriously, right? You command to love everyone, even people you regard as your enemies. You're commanded to love them. And if you immediately start jumping into things you don't like about Jews when they're being slaughtered, there's something pretty creepy going on. All right, Jeff, floor is yours right now to talk about anything you want that has to do with this topic.
Well, first of all,
a couple questions for you. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm thrilled you're going to be on Dr. Brown. Say hi. Tell him a little bit about me. I've cut my teeth on his stuff as far as some of his materials.
Yeah, I've had him. I've been on his show before, and he's been on my my live streams. And I just posted. That's one of the reasons I actually wanted to do a live stream. Is I posted a video recently where I was. Matter of fact, I should pull it up right now. We could play it. But it was just a quick video where I saw him at EPS, and I said, hey, I'm about to record a video with Abdul Murray on, loving our Muslim friends and neighbors. How about you make a quick video on loving our Jewish friends and neighbors? And how can they do that? And he's just talking about, hey, getting to know them, and hey, if you get the opportunity to discuss the, Jesus as the Messiah and things like that, just stuff like that, stuff that no Christian in the universe should ever object to. And people were flipping out, they were flipping out in the comments section. Notice these are people who usually come to my channel, and they're happy that I'm criticizing Islam, but I always say that we should love Muslims and we should reach them with the gospel. As soon as I mention Jews, and by the way, I'm not talking about the majority of people, the vast majority of people like the video, but a disturbing number of people were in the comments section and immediately started complaining like what's wrong with David Wood that he would dare post something saying, hey, here's how you can, show love to your Jewish friends and neighbors. So pretty disturbing world. Anyway, that's that was just a clip of Michael Brown. It was like, gosh, we have gotten to the point where you can't say love these people without people flipping out on you.
Yeah, and well, first of all, just as a side comment, the vast number of Jewish people aren't all that familiar with Talmud. In other words, you're talking about pretty versed, highly Orthodox people who would even have come into contact with negative comments at all that are in the Talmud. So
now, can you break down the Talmud for people who aren't familiar with it? I mean, my understanding is it's like a collection of like medieval commentaries by various like rabbis and stuff like that would claim to incorporate some of the oral tradition on the.
Basically, the Talmud is the codification of the oral tradition, which they say was passed down. I did a program on is there an oral law that they say was passed down alongside the written law at Sinai, and then was passed on through Moses to Ezra, from Ezra to the Great Assembly, and then down through the rabbis. And I debunk that. I don't believe in an oral law, but neither do the Karaite Jews believe in an oral law.
So just as a I'm not sure on percentages. I forget the number of Jews in the world, of something like 13, somewhere between 13 and 17 million. I've seen
somewhere in between there.
Yeah. Now, as far as the Jews that you would encounter in your daily activities, there'd be a wide spectrum. There would be atheist Jews. There would be very religious Jews. How many? Like, suppose you met like 1,000 Jews. What kind of percentage would you think are like strictly adherent to the Talmud and familiar with it and aware of what it says and trying to implement? Yeah, that's all we could do because it's going to change from place to place and time to time.
I would say probably under 5% who would be really Talmud conversant, very, very observant. I mean, even my grandfather, who was Orthodox, I wouldn't say was a Talmudic expert by any stretch of the imagination. And then with the Jewish reclamation of Jesus, which has been going on, you commented with the Israelis, there are a host of Jews that find Jesus incredibly attractive. And Moses Maimonides, who was one of the great Jewish thinkers, had some positive things to say. So, you're talking about very early Talmud tractates where the Sanhedrin's trying to justify their action. Don't we see that in other cultures where there's been a bad ruling and then they try to justify it? Has that ever happened in any other culture? So, I mean, that's just a little background on the Talmud and the fact that wouldn't be a benchmark. And even as far as even Jewish sentiment today, that wouldn't be a benchmark as far as Jewish sentiment related to Jesus even today.
So for the people want to say, when we try to talk about anti-Semitic attacks and guys, the reason this is, a really serious issue. We hear people complaining about anti-Muslim hate crimes, right? And to be clear, we don't want any anti-Muslim hate crimes, but you look at the statistics, by far, the percentage-wise, the biggest victims, the people who are in danger most from religious-based hate crimes in the West are Jews, right? But we hear anything that happens, pulling on a Muslim's hijab or something like that, it's all over the news. In the meantime, there are far more anti-Jewish attacks, and it's just we hear about them if it's something like the Hebrew Israelites attack, because that's like it's mass murder up there, and we kind of hear about that, but you certainly don't hear about it in the same way that you would hear about pulling on a hijab or something like that. It's instant national news if someone pulls on a Muslim's hijab or something like that.
Quick question in the live chat. Someone said, "Are you my dad?"
Who? You? Me? Who?
No, they're asking if Jeff was my dad.
Oh.
I'm serious. That was a question in there.
Well, you guys do have a similar style. You guys like hats and beards, and so.
It was really in there.
But no, Vocab is Italian. Jeff is Jewish.
Then someone else wanted to make sure, because someone else was asking to know his YouTube channel again and perhaps website.
Just double check. I believe I put that in the description box.
Okay.
But just go ahead and double check real quick. Make sure it's in there.
If you can bring up your YouTube, if you let me, if it's on the side every now and then when you guys are talking, I could sneak over there and add a couple mods, because I see a lot of my mods, and I don't think you have enough. I could add a couple mods, but I can't do it for mine. I have to do it for mine.
I don't trust your mods. Your mods just block everyone for anything.
We allow everybody to talk, except when they start picking on the ladies, then we clamp down. We got the most liberal policies out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So do we want to Vocab? Do you want to get into the tell them briefly about? Now we're actually putting a video of Vocab discussing the relationship between Black Hebrew Israelite beliefs and attacks like the one we just saw in New Jersey. But Vocab, you want to? So we're going to be making a video on that later this evening. So we'll have that posted soon, where he kind of goes into detail. Well, vocab, for anyone who hasn't been following the news, you want to fill them in on what just happened?
Yeah, so I believe this was Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, and in Jersey City, New Jersey, what we know now was a Black Hebrew Israelite man and his woman who had also adopted those ideals, named David Anderson and Francine Graham. So it's kind of like the One West, Bonnie and Clyde. One West is the specific set they are involved with. They had a pre-selected target with lots of weaponry, including a pipe bomb, parked their van, went into something called the JC Kosher Supermarket. Stands for Jersey City. I don't think it stands for Jesus Christ Kosher Supermarket. And started firing right away. And you can see a lot of this on security cams. It's pretty harrowing, as they say. I always like that word. But tragic situation in all seriousness. Go in there, murder the guy running the cashier station right away. Turned out later to be from Ecuador. So he would actually be a Hebrew Israelite according to their 12 tribes chart. But the man actually was an Assemblies of God churchgoer who was a beautiful Christian man who worked for the Jews who did run the store. And then the female, I forget the lady's name, who helped run the store. I think she's a part owner, was murdered as well as a younger guy who was the son of an activist, and I think was an activist to an extent himself, and as well as earlier a police officer. So those are the four who were murdered. And it turns out later, this couple was suspected in the murder of an Uber driver from a week before. And so it looks like they, over the week, killed at least 5 people. 2 other cops were injured, and of course, they themselves were also eventually killed, because what happened is some cops who happened to be in the area heard gunshots go off. They were on foot, I guess, ran over and made a much shorter shootout than it would have been. And once the cops got there with vehicles, they actually busted through the front. Now, that's sort of the basic actions of it. Could have been worse, though. There was a yeshiva school with about 50 Jewish kids in it that appears to be their real target. It seems like that's what was going to happen. So it was bad, could have been worse. Now, little by little information came out. I could go through the evidence if you want, but the short version is the man was an adherent to Hebrew Israelism. It appears at the time he was not in any one particular camp, although there is evidence indicates he was at one time a member, and in fact it appears he had the garments of the school of a group called the Israelite Church of God in Jesus Christ. When we were in New York over the summer, while David was having a big meal with all the big shot apologists, me and the homies went out on the street and actually went to the original school in Harlem of this group, 1941 Madison. Now, he was involved with the Jersey City School of the ICGJC. They tend to wear red and white. That's their colors of this particular One West Hebrew Israelite camp. And also, you can listen to his music online. He was an aspiring rapper, and you can hear his ideology in there. You can find a Facebook account. Now, some of the stuff's getting taken down. You can find a YouTube page of his, because I've looked at all this stuff. I did it on my show in detail. And also multiple Instagram accounts and some stuff on SoundCloud. The point is, from that, as well as from testimony to neighbors and whatnot, the man was a strong adherent to Hebrew Israelism. And he left a little note, in the essence of the note, because they released it. They haven't released all the 3-page manifesto, although some investigators are saying it's not really a manifesto, it's more of a list of grievances. But they haven't released the contents of that. But they did release this handwritten note that says, my creator is making me do this. This is partly paraphrased. But then this part's a quote. I must hate who my creator hates. Meaning God hates these Jews, and so do I. Although if you asked him, the reason he would be so upset about it, the reason why he would do this in part, is because under this type of Hebrew Israelite theology, they don't think modern-day Jews are real Jews. They believe they are all ethnic and religious imposters. They're usurpers. They're thieves. This is the largest case of identity theft in all of history in the One West Hebrew Israelite mindset. And so there's an anger there about their heritage being stolen. This is what they would believe. This is what they would hold to. They would use commonly Revelation 2:9 and Revelation 3:9 for this. And if you want a lesser egregious example of this, about a month ago or so, in the UK on what they call the Tube, there's a Hebrew Israelite man getting in the face of a Jewish family, reading very forcefully and aggressively from Revelation 2:9-3:9 as if it applied to them in the way he was meaning it to be, as if they're ethnic religious imposters. And believe it or not, a Muslim woman stepped up and defended the Jewish family. So it was a very interesting thing to see, and I covered this on a live stream as well. So that's a short version. Some more details are coming out little by little, but it just confirms it. And no, not all Hebrew Israelites do this kind of thing. Yes, it is a minority. And it does appear he acted alone as far as, him and the lady. That's it. Here's the thing, though, because a lot of Hebrew Israelites will say, hey, we don't promote this kind of thing, right? A number of groups have come out with statements against it. But here's the thing. We can talk more about this later. I'll stop here in a second. To the Hebrew Israelites who may be watching, because I hear your leaders, I hear your Saturday camp sessions that you do, I hear your classroom spiels, I see your comments. Listen, when you glamorize, fantasize, and fetishize acts of violence against Jewish people, don't be surprised when they become actualized.
Spoken word. Spoken word, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so that's basically the latest issue that made us want to jump on here live. A couple of comments real quick. Joseph Randall said, Brother David, I'm glad you're okay. I've not seen anything by you online since March. Well, that's not on my end, Joseph. You should click the bell. If you're not subscribed, you'll want to click the bell because I've been posting. I posted probably over 100 videos since then, so you're not getting them for some reason. So make sure you do something to get notifications. We have Love and Light said an attack on a synagogue just happened in Germany by a neo-Nazi. One woman, not Jewish, was killed. Happened at Yom Kippur. So, it actually, I mean, despite the horrible things that are happening here in the U.S., I think it's probably worse in Europe and seems to be getting
I can
worse.
Actually say it is worse in Europe. France and Germany in particular. One of the gentlemen I know wrote a book. He was a missionary in France with Joseph People Ministries. So those areas have become hotter than here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and have you heard about like people who are, Jews who are now like leaving France and Germany and moving to Israel?
There is, I couldn't give you the numbers,
mm-hmm.
But there's talk about pull out and things of that nature.
Yeah, and so, it's crazy that you have modern Western nations, supposedly the height of civilization that human beings have reached, and people have to leave because it's becoming completely unsafe for them, and they have to go to a different part of the world to be safe. So anyway, interesting stuff going on. A couple more comments. Here we go again. Check this out. Freedom Lover. How about what's said about Jesus and the Talmud? That might be an interesting topic for discussion, but what in the name of common sense does that have to do with Jews getting killed? Again, are you saying that given what people said, given what some medieval commentators trying to put together oral tradition on the Torah, given what some of them said about Jesus in their commentaries, what you're saying? It's hey, we shouldn't be concerned about Jews being killed? Is that what you're saying? Because this sounds remarkably sick to me. Not just if we're talking about Jews. Again, when we're talking about Muslims, when there was an attack on a mosque, on multiple mosques in New Zealand, that day I did 3 live streams with people so we could actually discuss these attacks, and it's horrifying to me that people would, but Muslims did this or Muslims did that, Muslims did this, Muslims did that. It's the idea that because certain people in your community at some point did something, therefore you're not individuals and you all deserve death or something like that. And it's a very, very strange idea.
Just by way of turning it around, would you feel that way if atheists got killed? What do they have to say about Jesus? In other words, would you apply that standard across the board? Would you look at a group's writings necessarily and apply that same standard to every group.
Yeah, I mean, what Jeff is pointing out, right? If someone went out and started like killing atheists at like Skepticon and stuff like that, would it make sense to say, but look at some of the very mean things that the new atheists say in their videos and in their writings? I mean, my goodness, why would you object to slaughtering atheists, right? You guys, I mean, do the people who are adhering to this position, do you not see a problem here? Anyway. Here you go. Here's one of your fans, Vocab.
What did it say?
He said, blacks are the true Israelites.
Oh, real?
Yeah.
Um,
do you know this guy? Is he on?
What's his name?
Me.
I don't know who that is.
I think that's Beaker.
So whoever it is.
Beaker from the Muppets. Remember him? Me.
Yeah. His mouth goes like that. It's like a land bridge. You know, I always like how his mouth is upside down. Anyways, check this out. What's interesting about that little statement, right? It's not that I would not say that it's correct to believe that no one who is black could not be an Israelite. What I mean by that is we have the Limba, who are in South Africa and Zimbabwe, who I think all the evidence strongly shows and indicates that just as much as other Jewish groups throughout the world who are recognized, the Limba of Zimbabwe and South Africa are also Jewish. Semitic in origin, DNA test confirms, oral history confirms, some practices confirm. You have a multitude of witnesses to show that. Yet they look similar to their neighbors, right? So it's not that no black person could not be an Israelite or a descendant, something like that, right? What's interesting, though, is this is exactly what we're talking about, where for some reason, they look at it like this pie, and the pie has to be the same size no matter what, instead of the pie could get bigger, meaning, oh, look, Jewish identity is broader than we think. But my point is, their identity of a lot of Hebrew Israelites is such that not only do we need to be Israelites ourselves, which is dubious in most Hebrew Israelites' claims, most of it's very dubious claim, but we're the true Israelites. Notice how he said true Israelites. That's the key. Meaning, these other groups of people who claim to be Jewish are false Israelites because we're the true Israelites. You see what I'm saying? It's that key word that kind of lets you know what's going on there, where it says, not only are we the real Israelites, okay, that's one part of a claim, but it's a double-barreled claim, usually with Hebrew Israelites, that says, also, those other guys are frauds. And I guess even that would be like, okay, we could disagree, but you guys get into basically, well, they need to be punished for identity theft, you know, and that's where the anger and the rage comes from a lot of these groups, and that's when things get pretty nasty. And thank God, though, that it usually doesn't get as nasty as it did earlier this week. But man, I am concerned as Hebrew Israelism grows, you'll get more rogue outlier guys and gals who, despite whatever their leaders say you're supposed to do now or not do, will go off and do the same kind of thing. I'm a little concerned about copycats. Yeah,
we see that a lot when it comes to terrorist attacks, right? As soon as you had one like white supremacist attack, all of a sudden there seemed to be a couple more very, very quickly after it. And we see this with Islamic terrorist attacks. As soon as someone comes up with a brilliant idea of driving a truck into a crowd of pedestrians, then all of a sudden we see a bunch of those in the next year or two. And it seems that, one terrorist attack sort of flips a light switch in other people's twisted minds. And then, so anyway, our concern, and part of the reason we want to comment on it, is that that's scary. Like same thing. By the way, exact same thing when there was the mosque attack in New Zealand. What you don't want to see is someone else saying that that's a good idea, and then someone else going and doing it, and then someone else saying, "Oh, they did it, let me do it too," and then you end up with a trend. We need to be cutting down on these things. Not everyone coming up with the same idea of going on killing sprees, right? Because for a while, it seems like almost every terrorist attack you heard about was an Islamic terrorist attack. Now you have Hebrew Israelites. Now you have white supremacists. Now it seems like it's escalating as far as extent. as far as the number of terrorist attacks, they should be down because of the fall of ISIS. There are many Muslims out there who, even if they believe in terrorism, believe that they have to be ordered to carry out a terrorist attack by a caliph. And therefore, when there was someone in the Middle East claiming to be the caliph, everyone's ear should have gone, whoa, this is bad. This is really, really bad, what we're hearing right now. Because if you've got someone ordering people to take to carry out terrorist attacks, then anyone who believes that he's actually the caliph would be taking orders from the caliph now. So that's why that's very scary. So anyway, you're going to see a decrease in terrorist attacks because you no longer have many people taking this guy, the taking ISIS seriously. Not nearly as many as were taking it seriously a couple years ago, but instead of saying, "Wow, cool, we can start moving away from terrorism," now all kinds of other groups are saying, "Hey, we need to step up to terrorism." All right, Jeff, what are your thoughts on this issue? Does it concern you, like personally? Are you worried that you'll ever? Because you're obviously not a victim of attacks here, and you believe in Jesus. Are you worried? Basically, if the trends are getting worse.
Well, me believing in Jesus won't necessarily protect me from anything. Historically, that's been the case, because I would still be identifiable. There were Jewish believers in Germany. It didn't shield them one little bit, because I don't think it's based on asking people what their beliefs are. I don't think anyone's giving Jewish people questionnaires about their beliefs before this incident. Passed out questionnaires and said, "What do you believe?" and then went ahead and did this.
And by the way, I was actually we went to the Holocaust Museum that's in Israel.
Yad Vashem.
Yeah. We went in there, and they were actually pointing that out. They would talk about Christians who were anti-Semites, and they were saying, but the difference was, like, even for Christians who are persecuting Jews, they at least believe that you could still be saved. You had to trust in Jesus. Whereas by the time you got to, like, the Nazis or people who were thinking of it in biological terms, like you have a biological problem or something like that, they didn't care what you believed. It was you are a defective person somehow that needed to be done away with.
Untermenschen, a subhuman. So I don't think that necessarily saves me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's often been a thought. I've done mosque evangelism, and I've often thought, my wife's kind of like, just, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that necessarily protects me from anything, but I don't think that in the history of the Jewish people, I would be much protected at other times in history.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would have wanted to be in England. We go to a Renaissance fair, and the thing is, I can dress up, but if I had been in 10th century Europe, I probably would be in a bad place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
anyway, these are the things we have to think about, because if you see a trend, right, and the trend that already existed was if you're talking about religiously motivated hate crimes, Jews already were the biggest targets by far in the U.S. And if things are starting to pick up, where it's actually just walking in and gunning them down in their synagogues, or gunning them down wherever they happen to be, then if you're worried about this catching on, this is a really bad time. It's a really bad time if things are getting worse. And again, if we're looking at Europe, man, things are getting bad. Anyway, sick stuff going on. A couple comments here. So sweet. Let's start off with a good one. Sweet T. Stevens says, David and Jeff, will you two be at the Urban Conference in February? This is your time for a plug, Vocab.
Yeah, he's going to go put a plug in. I just want to say hi to Sweet Tea. I'm glad that she's on tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And Vocab is going to handle your question complete with a visual.
You tell him what you're
Yeah,
gonna
you
do,
go
bro.
ahead and answer.
I'll even, or we can.
We need two of them. We each need to hold them.
Yeah, that's right.
Here. All right, there we go. Yes, I will.
What are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be actually a Jew looks at Catholicism. That was kind of Vocab's. Are there similarities or total differences, or are there any philosophical connections anywhere?
Mm-hmm. What's interesting?
Compare and contrast priests, sacrificial system. It's going to be very interesting and insightful look into both, especially from his perspective. He did a great job last year. It'd be good to have him back this year.
Yeah.
February 7th through 9th, come to Phoenix.
Yep.
And if you're already there, then more's the better.
Oh, we haven't told people what you're talking about. David Wood.
And I'll be there as well. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about. What am I talking about?
Nabil.
Okay.
His conversion and stuff.
Okay. So
just like you gave your testimony last time, you're going to kind of give his testimony this time.
So I'll be giving Nabil's testimony for him.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do that. Talk about some, we'll basically be talking about my interaction with Nabil over the years, probably up until him becoming a Christian. But a lot, and we just saw this 2 days ago when we went live with Irvin, whose wife is a former Muslim, but you see the same things over and over again. If you're talking to a Muslim, it's very rare to walk up to a Muslim, preach the gospel, and the Muslim converts. If you ever see that happen, then either that person had some sort of immediate spiritual encounter, or someone was there before you doing a lot of work along the way. Because usually it's a fairly long, lengthy process. But a lot of the same things, and a lot of the same stepping stones come along in those things. So if you actually learn those, then you can kind of be ready for them. If you learn what objections Muslims have, the same things come up over and over and over again. And so, by listening to one Muslim story and another Muslim story and another Muslim story, you're basically going to get an idea of what's going on with a lot of the Muslims you'll ever meet. And of course, we have here from Wall, the Talmud says Jesus is in heel, boiling in excrement.
He needs to remove the apostrophe.
Yeah.
Because I don't know where heel is. But
yeah.
On a side note, that's not in a Talmud tract. I'd love to know what Talmud tractate. That's probably Toldot Yeshu, and that's actually a medieval writing that is not Talmud, most likely. And so I often wonder when I see comments like this, so how much of the Talmud have you read?
None, and that's what's the right. I mean, if you're talking about the Talmud, I mean, you're talking about some massive multi-volume collections on all kinds of things with a bunch of different human input
and written at different times.
Yeah, and these are not things where a Jew would say, "I can adhere to all of this." Right? Because they do have differences of opinion, right?
Well, that's the funny thing about the Talmud is, first of all, it's a collection of writings over a period of 700 years, roughly. I mean, we're talking about the early Talmud writers, the Tanaim, up until 200, and then you're talking about the last Talmud writers with the Tosafot and some of that stuff. You're talking about a period of time of hundreds of years. And yes, rabbis contradicted each other in the Talmud. Mm-hmm. So it's like he says, and he's right, and he's right. They're both right. It's like the conversation with Tevye.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good comment you might want to grab, since you tend to be grabbing those kinds of comments, David, by TikTok. It's towards the bottom. Go all the way to the bottom. You might like that one.
All right, I will in a second. I wanted to point out something here after this one. So here we have again, the Talmud readers owns and runs the U.S. Goy. You think that's true?
The stereotypes of Jewish people are so funny to me. We're in faith-supported ministry. Mm-hmm. So if I was running things and I was wealthy, I'd be living differently in a lot of ways. So, that's kind of my big joke. We were from a very middle-class family, and yeah, we had some relatives that had more,
but Dwight is saying that the Talmud readers owns. You gotta love the grammar of these guys, right? The Talmud readers owns and runs the U.S. Goy. I guess
and Goy is probably reference to Gentiles.
Yeah.
Most of your Jewish people who, quote unquote, would be, in the entertainment industry or in the influence industry, they aren't generally Orthodox Jews.
Yeah, I know. The Orthodox Jews you see are not usually.
If you're talking about Hasidics, they're an insular community.
Yeah.
We're having trouble. I mean, missionaries are having trouble reaching them because they're so insular. They're so self-contained that it's almost impossible. I remember visiting Crown Heights, and we did a prayer walk in Crown Heights, and we didn't step into the neighborhood for more than 2 or 3 minutes when people greeted us and said, "So what are you doing in our neighborhood?" Mm-hmm. And they didn't leave the neighborhood except to go work and then go back to their. So I mean, no, those would be the strict, super hyper strict
The people who would be pouring through the Talmud on a regular basis to try to adhere to it are not the people who are cranking out Hollywood films.
No,
and
absolutely
things like that.
not.
Yeah. And I mean, it seems that a lot of the Hollywood producer types and so on who would still be somewhat observant. It's kind of like a club for a lot of them, where this is how you keep interacting with all of your.
Yeah, I mean,
just like church can be kind of a club for lots of Christians.
Well,
it would
be sort of, to give an example, it'd almost be saying like the rich Presbyterians run America. Well, what percentage of the church...
Donald Trump?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember from I didn't know this, but vocab point. I'm a Presbyterian.
That's what he said.
So you see that?
I'm a Presbyterian.
Rich Presbyterians run America.
Do Corinthians. Presbyterians love it. Everybody's talking about it. It's great.
This is actually an interesting comment here from Leon. Best chess players were Jews. Now, the reason I wanted to point this out, you definitely had some phenomenal Jewish chess players, but think about this. Why is it that people will point to something negative and not, hey, look at the amazing medical research, look at all the Nobel Prizes, look at all the scientific developments and so on. And why wouldn't that be something that they immediately think about when they're thinking about whether it's a good idea for people to be going around slaughtering Jews? Why are they not thinking in terms of those kinds of things? And it's all just, let me think of every bad thing because guess what, guys, you can do that with anyone. You can think of any group. You can think of Muslims, you can think of Christians, you can think of atheists, you can think of Jews, and you can just pick out like the worst examples of them that you could think of and just say, my goodness, look at all the horrible, horrible people who've been that. And then just really just become obsessed with it. Gosh, think about that. Oh my goodness, these horrible, horrible people. And become so obsessed with that that's all you want to talk about. But
it's also logical fallacy.
Yeah.
Whatever those people did, they didn't do because they were Jews. They did that because they were bad. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's a logical fallacy to look at a negative in a group of people and assume that the cause is that. That's just kind of a ridiculous way to look at it.
The only time, let me put it this way. The time when you would want to really like bring up the ideology is when it's connected to the behavior, right? Like if we're talking about, when vocab's talking about the Hebrew Israelite attack on Jews in New Jersey, well, their ideology is relevant. It's relevant that they view the Jews as these people who came and took over for them and stuff, and that it's a mass case of identity theft. That's relevant. When a jihadi carries out a terrorist attack, and it's because, and he's shouting Allahu Akbar, and it's because his prophet orders him to wage jihad on the world. It's relevant. If you're talking about something that some Jew did here or there, something like that, then the question would be, how is it relevant to the ideology? But the point is, if you wanted to say that, then why wouldn't you want to say, Jews have won a disproportionate number of Nobel Prizes for scientific and medical advances and so on like that. So if you wanted to be the sort of person who says, hey, they did a lot of this, therefore I'm attributing it to something within the community, why wouldn't you do that for other issues like, playing chess or something like that, or for, again, scientific achievements?
Things like that aren't necessarily ideological. In other words, what I could say there is that there's nothing in the Jewish writings that requires Jews to play chess. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in the Jewish writing. You know what I'm saying? You're right. Where the ideology is the foundation for the action. In other words, the action is being justified through the ideology. You have a really good point. But a lot of the statements that are negative here don't have anything to do with Jewish ideology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's. Would you think of it as similar to, like, lots of Asians in the West being academic overachievers compared to other groups, but it's kind of because their parents are really emphasizing, hey, you need to work hard, and whereas me, my parents didn't care a lot. They'd look at my report card and stuff like that, but they weren't staying on me. Whereas In many Asian households, it's no, hey, you have to be doing your work. You have to be like my wife is half Filipino, and she was like that. She had to be constantly working hard at things. So is it more like kind of a cultural thing of, hey, you need to
that's where things kind of get into it. Are there cultural things in Jewish culture that would prompt certain things? Well, yes, learning is prized, education is prized. Those sorts of things tend to be looked upon favorably. So if someone said, well, how many Jewish wrestlers to how many Jewish doctors are there? Well, I'd say there's probably more Jewish doctors, but that's more of a cultural thing than it is something directly stated.
Whereas in my household, there's more wrestlers.
Well, hold on. Goldberg, right?
The wrestler Goldberg?
Yeah.
Okay, what about him?
Isn't he Jewish?
Yeah, that's true. Ha! In your face. Goldberg. One of the best who ever did it.
There are, and
I can't believe Vocab brought that up.
I used to joke about the book of number of sportsmen, but you had Mark Spitz, you had Sandy Koufax, who wouldn't play on Yom Kippur. Yes, you do have that. I'm just saying that when we sat around the table, my dad didn't say my son the wrestler. I mean, that wasn't what came out.
Barry Horowitz, Scotty Goldman.
He's looking up. What are you looking up? Jewish athletes?
Paul Heyman. No, I'm on the WWE website looking up
baseball players. I have a guy who has a global baseball ministry who's with Chosen People, and he will in my face with the number of baseball players if I make a crack about Jewish baseball players.
So he's ready.
Yeah, he's ready. He was minor league actually.
The Grand Wizard, Joel Gertner, some of these guys.
Yeah,
are,
you could do a full live stream on your own talking about Jewish wrestlers.
Macho Man, Randy Savage. Oh yeah, he's half Jewish. Oh yeah, he's half Jewish.
Not too shabby.
Okay, I wouldn't have picked up on him so much.
Me neither.
Hulk Hogan, yeah.
Shalom.
Shalom, Hulk Hogan, yeah. Hey, some people were saying they couldn't hear you. I don't know if we could get the computer closer to them, or you be louder.
I could probably try to be louder.
Or something.
I could try to be louder because I don't want to mess with the proportionality here.
Yeah. I still think you should let me do some mods, David, by the way.
You should. I mean, if you really, really trust someone.
Yeah, I got my man Nate. I got D New. I got some classic people in here.
So you can't accept other mods?
Not even though I'm a moderator.
You just name people as I'm scrolling. Oh, I can't even do it on my computer. I don't even have the regular thing open up.
What? Well, you got to bring up your YouTube.
Oh gosh, you're making life hard on me.
That's all right. You know what? Just
You're a mod, right?
Yeah, but I can't make mods. Only the owner can do that.
Yeah. But you're back there now, so I got a mod, right?
But for the future, bro, trust me.
Yeah, for the future. So
someone did ask an interesting question.
Is this the one you wanted from TikTok? You mentioned TikTok. You said
no,
go to a comment
not
TikTok.
that one. There's some other ones.
So before that,
I kind of lost track of it now. By this point,
man,
some people are saying
slipping back there.
Where's it? Well, it's like a way far. You took too long.
Mm-hmm.
You're the one slipping, homie. This is in Phoenix, Arizona, by the way, everybody. They're asking where the Doctor for the Block, conference is. So that's the deal with that.
It's in February. It's a good time to be in the desert.
That's right.
Temperatures are nice.
Yep. So definitely want to. By the way, I just want to make a quick, caveat. I think what we were saying is, what does it mean necessarily about negative things about Jesus and the Talmud? That was kind of the question we were asking, sort of a pragmatic way. I don't want anyone to think we're making, at least for me, making excuses for messed up stuff in the Talmud about Jesus. I mean, the Gospel of John, and the Gospels in general, speak about Jewish leadership critical of Jesus. They said horrible things about him. Now, of course, Jesus himself was a Jew, and of course, most of the early church were Jews. The New Testament writers, Jews, maybe the exception of Luke, but, you had the split going on. The crowd was divided is a regular sentence, right? But, you got the Jewish leaders even then saying, your power comes from Satan, you're demon-possessed, you're crazy, all that kind of stuff, right? And, that's real, but then also you have members of the Sanhedrin who are loyal Nicodemus, and of course the man who Jesus was buried in his grave. He borrowed his tomb for a second. Joseph of Arimathea. So that debate is right there. And in fact, the thing where it says Jesus was a sorcerer in the Talmud, even though the final compilation of the Talmud there is later, it seems to be confirmation of one of the Jewish establishment's criticisms of Jesus, in that his power was demonic in origin. So it's actually confirmation for some of the criticism or disagreement with Jesus. That's my take on it anyway. I want to add that in.
And you know, the reality is their problem wasn't they were Jewish. Their problem was they didn't like the message. And going out and doing First Fridays and doing street evangelism, guess what? There are people that don't like the message, and they're not necessarily Jewish. So some of the folks I run into, it's not an ethnic thing. It's they don't like the message of Jesus. Regardless of their background, they just don't want the gospel.
Mm-hmm. So what do? We treat people as individuals?
Yes.
Yeah. Sounds like a...
That's what I would do. Here you go.
Oh,
Here.
Dr. Funny too. He's another guy should be a mob. And
Yeah.
Corrence Chandler. See, there's all kinds of people, bro. But all right, go ahead.
Martin here. David fails time. Realize that it's Jews who are bringing Muslims into Europe. Right, so it's the Jews, right? The Jews are the ones the Jews are bringing in the Muslims to shut down the white man, right?
The Jews are sitting around like, we need to import some more Muslims.
Yeah, we're complaining about all these anti-Semitic attacks and attacks on mosques. What we really need is an ideology that calls for our violent subjugation. Let's bring more in, and then we'll flee the country even faster. Yay! Got some straight geniuses here.
Is there any wicked going on in the world today that you can't find somebody online saying that a Jew is behind it? You know what I mean?
Of course you can. You could say anyone is behind anything, right? If you're a conspiracy theory. Wait, hang on. We have Sonia here.
I'm saying it just seems like a common thing where
Yep.
a lot of people seem to think if you look long and hard enough, you'll find a Jew behind every evil in our society. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there are. It seems like there are. Anytime there are people who are like obsessed with one particular group, it seems like they start heading in that direction. Like it's one thing to say, you know, I reject Catholicism and I'm going to respond to Catholic doctrine. I'm going to disagree. It's another to see Catholics behind everything, right? Like I get messages, not necessarily every day, but several times a week, saying that Catholics actually started Islam. Catholics were behind the foundation of Islam, and so on. And so you can see Catholics behind everything. You can see again, people call me a Jesuit because there are people who believe that Jesuits are behind the scenes, conspiring and controlling, and everyone's a puppet on the strings of the Jesuits, and so on. And yeah, if you go in for these kinds of conspiracy theories, you can kind of point to any group that you're really obsessed with and say they're behind the scenes, because that's kind of what makes a powerful conspiracy theory is you just can't refute it, right? If I say, well, I don't see any evidence that this group is diabolically doing these things, well, that's what they want you to think because they're so good at it, right? And so you can't really refute them. Sonia said, please read my comments, lol. All right.
Just did.
Sonia?
Someone pointed out in the live chat there was one famous Jewish basketball player, Julius Erving.
Oh,
what's wrong with you? Come on.
Hey, that was like a mouse, not me.
Sonia, post whatever comment you want us to post right now. You got a golden ticket right now. You got a golden ticket. Post any comment you want, and I'm going to put it up there.
By the way, I figured it out. What they're saying is...
What, who's saying?
These conspiracy theorists is that Jews want more people to move to Israel, and so they bring Muslims in for anti-Semitism because then they'll cause more people to move to Israel. So anti-Semitism helps Jews. That's what that's actually the conspiracy. I just figured out by reading some of the comments. Wow.
So massive conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
So these are people who would probably also view all the anti-Semitic attacks in the U.S. as plotted by Jews and being inspired by Jews in order for Jews to eventually want to leave the U.S. and go to Israel as well, right? So Jews are behind all the attacks on Jews. So that's the theory, right?
Yeah, I saw some people actually say the Jersey City thing was a big Department of Homeland Security exercise. You know, that it was a stage and stuff, like a training exercise. So yeah, a lot of Hebrew Israelites that I've seen, especially members of GMS, believe that this was staged and it's the beginning of persecution, so the government can have an excuse to crack down on Hebrew Israelites. And they think it's a sign of the end. Yep. So, a lot of really, really bright people out there making some great statements from a place of clear, critical thinking is all I can say.
Yeah. And guys, the problem here is, I mean, once you get enough people believing, right, and circulating enough claims about some group, that this group is conspiring behind everything and pulling all the strings and controlling everything and manipulating everything, then you get people who go out and open fire, right? And so the idea is, if you're going to make these kinds of claims, at least make sure that they're based in reality and not wild speculation or insane conspiracy theories. All right, guys, we'll probably go for, what did we start, 7? Probably go for another 10 or 15 more minutes before we start winding down. Here's one by Fascist Troll. I'm wondering if this person is actually just a troll, right? Who's not serious in anything he's saying, just trying to troll. But it's a good example of a troll. When will the Jews apologize for killing Jesus?
See, now my question would that be, which ones? The ones that followed him or the ones that didn't? It ignores the early history of the church. Mm-hmm. That's the charge of deicide. It's been used throughout history. You killed God, therefore you're responsible.
And notice you could say the same thing. When are the non-Jews going to apologize for killing Jesus? Because it was Jews and non-Jews involved.
Exactly. When is every Italian gonna end?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
Italians apologize for a role in crucifixion of Jesus.
I'm not justifying what was done, but what I'm pointing out is that
the people who did it are dead.
Well, it would be very hard for me to apologize for something that occurred two millennia before I was born. Mm-hmm. But I'm also pointing out that the disagreement about Jesus was within that people group. Mm-hmm. There were people for and people against in the same people group. So it wasn't one people group against another. It was a disagreement. I can honestly say, and Bayarn would point this out, it was a disagreement within Judaism. Mm-hmm. Actually.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you had Jews who were cheering Jesus as he went into the city. When we went to Jerusalem and we're examining the places and so on, the Jews that would have been sort of gathered up for the crucifixion as a kind of mob around the crucifixion scene, these are basically Jews between Herod's fortress, where Pilate would have been, where Jesus would have been brought to Pilate. So these are basically Jews in an area between Herod's fortress and the crucifixion scene, and it's a specific little area where they would have been, hey, come along, see who's being crucified now. But yeah, you had Jewish believers in Jesus. I mean, you had the Jews who accepted the gospel, but you had a wider group of Jews who liked him but didn't ultimately accept the gospel. And then you had the ones who were cheering on the crucifixion. But how do you say, therefore, the entire people group needs to apologize for that? I wouldn't even know what that would look like, right? I mean, it sounds really weird to me. Sound weird?
Yeah, and it's a people group. I mean, the individuals that were involved with the crime are so long since dead that you'd have people generations removed from the incident trying to apologize what people did generations before. Mm-hmm. You can't go back in time. It doesn't work like that.
Marty, we can. All we have to do is fix the flux capacitor. It's heavy, man.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I believe in a sense of communal guilt, in a sense that, in a kind of limited sense, meaning that if my dad killed your dad and that ruined your life, and now I have a chance to fix what my dad did and to make up for what my dad did and to help you because my dad killed your dad or something like that, I believe that I should do that. as far as, I mean, if you're going back like thousands of years and saying you need to apologize for what this guy did 2,000 years ago or something, yeah, there's something weird and I would say insane going on. And so again, it's just very, very interesting the level of obsession that exists. If you see Israel do something and you believe it was wrong for Israel to do that, and you say, hey, Israel was wrong for what it did there, that makes perfect sense to me. If you can defend a claim that some nation or some person or some group did something wrong, that makes perfect sense. When you are so obsessed with something that no matter what the topic is, you have to bring in something that's completely irrelevant and start focusing on it, that's weird. I'm saying that because I could post something about something Muhammad said about, sex with prepubescent girls or something like that, and someone will immediately jump in there. Why aren't you condemning the Talmud? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you talking about what Jews just did? Why aren't you just like it's a level of I don't know. I mean, it seems insane to me, but there are so many people who are like that. I'm finding it difficult to believe that they're all insane. So it must just be some sort of weird ideological undercurrent that's going on. But it's pretty creepy. All right, what do you guys think?
The Jews created communism is a comment by Mimi, and these men, Kathy Miller says, are very open about espousing the New World Order. We're espousing the New World Order, us three, according to Kathy Miller.
Well, Engels and Marx were hardly religious Jews. I mean, yes, you have outliers. And that's kind of the way I look at it. Again, you're pointing to some of a group. That's like saying the Italians gave us Mussolini. I mean, I wouldn't say something like that. That's ridiculous.
Hey, you made the trains run on time. You're welcome.
Yeah. Germans, hey, all you Germans in the chat, you need to apologize for Hitler.
But you know what? Italians did give you spaghetti, cappuccino, lattes, espresso, pizza, lasagna, macaroni, Gucci, Lamborghini.
You were
Porsche,
doing great until you got to Gucci.
Michelangelo, Donatello. Should I continue on? Cristoforo Colombo. A lot of the popes. Sorry about that.
Italians did not give us the Ninja Turtles, dude.
That's right, dude.
And
Rudy Giuliani.
And for the record,
Rocky Balboa.
I thought you were going to say Sylvester Stallone.
Muslims gave us coffee.
Mike Piazza.
I'm saying, you took credit for coffee back there?
Gelato.
Coffee.
Fettuccine.
That was actually a Muslim who would have been regarded by heretical as other Muslims, but it was someone who believed in Islam, who decided to boil those beans and came up with coffee. So you Italians are guilty of cultural appropriation there.
Frank Sinatra, Dizzy Dean.
Oh, blue eyes.
Robert De Niro.
Hey, come on!
Al Pacino.
You can name
Ray Romano.
a bunch of famous Italians on your own live stream. You know what I do notice though? You've got these. When you have a Muslim speaker, they'll like claim every cool person who came from who was also a Muslim. It's like what you're doing with Italians back there, but I can already tell you can name way more people than I hear from the guys who are saying, look at all these famous Muslims who did cool stuff.
Joe DiMaggio, Yogi Berra.
Are you looking at a list or are you just coming up off the top of your head?
I don't even look at a list to know my people. Rocky Marciano.
Sonia here says, did my comments go through regarding Talmud quotes are false and misinterpreted on purpose verses about Jesus are not as claimed? So this is a claim that some of the passages that are put forward as as about Jesus are actually being misrepresented or twisted.
That's why I asked about Toldot Yeshu, because it's not really a Talmud tractate. So you have comments that are being made, but they aren't necessarily part of the Talmud. And so most people don't know what the divisions of the Talmud are, and they don't know the difference between the Jerusalem Talmud, the Babylonian Talmud, and they have no idea that it's a compilation of works and which rabbis were of which era or any of that stuff. They just have heard the Talmud says this, and they put it forth, and they don't really know anything.
Mario and Luigi.
He's going to be doing this the rest of the broadcast.
Spaghetti.
I already said that.
You already said spaghetti?
And spaghetti westerns.
Did you say linguine?
No. Good call. Angel hair.
You're going to get some comments from some folks of an Oriental background pointing out that Marco Polo got some of his ideas from the East.
Danny DeVito. Joe Pesci.
Now, see, that means wait a minute. That means a lot of Italians are in entertainment, and therefore they're influencing society.
Quentin Tarantino.
Do you want to take credit for that?
Francis Coppola.
You might get a conspiracy theory over that one.
And his daughter. And who's the other famous Italian director that did some not
Mastriani?
No. Oh yeah, Pavarotti.
All right, vocab, this is becoming embarrassing. What have Italians really contributed?
The Roman centurion, Acts chapter 10.
The aqueduct.
Well, that was handy.
The aqueduct.
And Cesare Borgia.
Let's see. So another comment by Sonia here. These Talmud quotes are fabrications. I'm actually researching these claims. Go to the actual citations. It doesn't say what they tell us. So here's basically the situation. Notice if you have oral tradition. So the idea is that Moses delivered the Torah, but at the same time he said some things. God spoke some things to Moses, and then Moses passed them on. And that's the idea. These things were handed down as oral Torah.
Right, and then you have the rabbis codifying. Okay, and that's why I did a whole program on that claim, because Judaism is Talmud Torah Judaism. It's not just Torah. So the claim by Jewish people who are unsaved that we follow Torah Judaism and it's you Jesus followers that are nuts. Well, no, you don't. You follow Talmud. The Hebrew school I went to was a Talmud Torah Hebrew school.
So these things are codified, but obviously, if some rabbi says something about Jesus, that's not simply oral Torah that was passed down. That's him trying to apply something, or
he's trying to figure out how to do it. If you don't have a New Testament, you need other writings. I mean, I don't care if it's Catholic tradition or if it's additional writings under Islam. If you don't have the New Testament, you can't make sense completely. You can't figure out how the story ends. You've got like half the story. So how do you know how to make this work today? There's no temple. How do you know when to turn on lights, when not to turn on lights, what this commandment means in a 20th century milieu? Well, the rabbis during the Middle Ages were saying, okay, now there's no temple. How do we do this? And the answer was, you look to the one who was the living word and who was Messiah, who was supposed to bring us additional revelation and be the revelation of God and give us those answers. That's a plug for faith. But the Talmud doesn't solve the problem. Jesus solves the problem as Messiah. He can tell me what the original intent of Moses' law was.
That's right.
And so if you don't have that, now you have to figure out what the intent of the law was and what was meant by it and how it's supposed to work. And so that's what you get with Talmud. But she's right again. You know, a lot of this stuff is you know.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, if a rabbi is recording what is supposedly the oral Torah, right? He's recording something that's supposedly passed down from the time of Moses orally and so on, and he's putting it into writing. If he says something mean about Jesus, it seems like he's just adding his own thoughts on Jesus or something like that, or trying to apply some principle that he's getting from there and trying to apply it to Jesus, but it doesn't seem like your average. You already mentioned that very few Jews would be very conversant with the Talmud. The point is, it doesn't seem like your average Jew walking down the street has any clue what some medieval Jewish rabbi said about Jesus, and even if he did, why he should take that as authoritative in the way he would take the Torah as authoritative.
My dad didn't even take the Torah as being authoritative, much less the Talmud.
Yeah.
So if you're
That's what I mean. But even for a Jew who takes the Torah seriously and even takes the traditions seriously, it doesn't seem like every single claim in the Talmud is something he's going to be working. I don't think you could. It's kind of all over the place on certain things.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, your Orthodox Hasidic Jew might try to take this real seriously. Mm-hmm. But the funny thing with your Orthodox Jew is there are sects among the Hasidic that look upon Jesus somewhat kindly. They look at him as a Rebbe. Again, when you start looking at his writings and you start historically looking at when they were written, it's hard to say that he had nothing to do with the ideas that were around him within his own people and within, that he didn't interact with anything anyone was saying religiously in his day. And so, that changes everything. Mm-hmm. That's why guys like Bayarin are saying, hey, when we really look at this, we find out that this actually makes sense in this time period. This is where people in Judaism were really at. These are what they were really asking. Jesus was dealing with real questions and real people and real ideas.
Mm-hmm. Izzy here, this is a sort of side note, but Izzy said, David, best Bible to read, please. Well, I can't actually answer that. I would say pick a good translation and pick one that you like and are most inclined to read. So what I mean by that is don't get some weird translation that's made for, to further some theological agenda. So something like the New World Translation that Jehovah's Witnesses use, that's made specifically to reinforce Jehovah's Witness doctrine, right? And not necessarily accurate translations of the text. But for other translations, you're talking about, the mainline translations, kind of depends, right? Because there are different kinds of translations. We talked about this I think just a couple days ago, that you have two main schools of thought in translations. You either are trying for a literal translation, trying to be as close as possible to what the text says, or so that's like word for word translation, or you have what are called thought for thought translations, right? You're not trying to necessarily translate each word because English doesn't flow the same way that, let's say, Greek flows, right? So if you just sort of go through translating the words, you have to kind of smooth it over some. The question is how much. But then you have the idea that they use different idioms and so on back then that we don't use today. So if you just translate the words, you might not understand the meaning, and so you have what are called thought for thought translations. But if you, I would say read a chapter. Take a chapter of the Bible. A chapter of one of the Gospels, like a chapter from the Gospel of John or something like that. Go to Bible Gateway and look up some of the main translations. So go with, the NASB, New American Standard Bible. Check out the ESV. Those are more literal translations. So they try to stick to the words as much as possible. A kind of thought for thought Bible would be like the NIV. So check that out and read them and see, hey, what am I more inclined to be consistent reading here? Like if I were to read this regularly, which one of these would I be most inclined to continue reading? And I would say get a copy of that and stick with that. Hey, wait.
Versace.
Hey, we actually have a request by a Muslim here.
Armani.
We actually have from a Muslim here. Nice.
Isaiah 42.
Isaiah chapter 42, and there's a reason he's bringing this up. This is the new popular one. Okay, this is the one where it became a popular Muslim argument. Hey, my Muslim friend, why don't you go to my video, look up or just search, and my video will pop up for something like top Muslim channel claims that Muhammad is God. or top Muslim channel declares that Allah is God. Because they actually take this passage, and there's a part that's talking about Yahweh. And Yahweh says that Yahweh is going to do something. They actually took the word Yahweh out, which is God. That's the name of the God of the Bible. They actually took that word out, replaced it with Muhammad, and said that this is about Muhammad and it's a prophecy about Muhammad. Now, what kind of apologists, what kind of Muslim apologists, people who are trying to get us to take Islam seriously, what kind of person who can claim any level of integrity whatsoever would take a verse that is about God doing something and replace the word God with Muhammad and then go tell countless Muslims, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of Muslims, go tell them, you see, this is about Muhammad. That's what your guys are doing. And for some reason, it doesn't bother you. And they'll do all of that to try and get you to believe that there's a prophecy about Muhammad. And I've seen them there. By the way, I should probably make a separate video on this, but I can think of no less than 3 passages in the Old Testament off the top of my head. 3 passages where the one who's being talked about is Yahweh, the God of the Bible, and Muslim apologists, including people like Jamal Badawi, right? Take out God and say that this is actually about Muhammad. And this is supposed to be the religion that is against shirk, that's against blasphemy, and they're trying to portray Muhammad as God and claiming that that's what their religion is against. Anyway, we want to take a look at Isaiah 42.
I can read it real quick.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
The place you're saying where
they're focused on the beginning.
Take out God, where it says the Lord, is 42:13.
Mm-hmm.
That's where it is. But I'll start in 42:10, and then when we get to 13, you'll see where they have to take it out for it to work. Sing to the Lord a new song, his praise from the end of the earth. You who go down to the sea and all that fills it, the coastlands and their inhabitants. Let the desert and its cities lift up their voice. The villages that Kedar inhabits.
You see that? That's place number 1, right? That's place number 1. They say Kedar. That was an Arab group. So right there, anytime a Muslim apologist hears any word that had anything to do with Arabs, you see, that's about Muhammad. It's about Muhammad, ladies and gentlemen. And so they see the word Kedar there, which would have been familiar to all the Jews of the time. What Kedar was, it's the group that's east. It's the group that's east of us. And if you look at what's going on here, it's from east to west. They're talking about people everywhere. But for some reason, anytime Arab is used or Kedar is used or any word that has anything to do with anyone east or south of Israel, Muslims claim this is a prophecy about Muhammad. Go ahead and read that part again to see if there's anything that would make us think that this is actually specifying Muhammad, an Arab prophet who's going to come along well over 1,000 years later.
Let the desert and its cities lift up their voice, the villages that Kedar inhabits. Let the inhabitants of Selah sing for joy.
Notice what it just said. Notice what it just said. It's talking because it's a very simple passage. It's a very simple passage. It's talking about everything praising God, right? So everyone over there praise God. Everyone over here is going to praise God. Here's going to praise God. There's going to praise God, right? Now, Selah, that's a place of the Edomites. So this is just south. This is just south of Israel, right? Muslims will even take that and say that it's actually talking about someplace down in Arabia.
Let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory to the Lord and declare his praise in the coastlands.
Now,
by the way, do you guys catch what it just said? The coastlands were the place that was west. That was west, right? If you're standing in Jerusalem, the coastlands, that's west. The desert and Kedar, that's east, right? So they're just sitting there saying, everything praise the Lord, everything praise the Lord. But for some reason, again, anytime you talk about anything east or south, it's a prophecy about Muhammad, even if that makes absolutely no sense given the text. All right, go ahead, Vocab.
And then here's the big one, verse 13. The Lord goes out like a mighty man. Like a man of war, he stirs up his zeal. He cries out, he shouts aloud. He shows himself mighty against his foes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there you have the Lord. The Lord goes out like a man of war, right? They took out the Lord when they popularized this argument. They took out the Lord, which in Hebrew is Yahweh, They took that out and said, this is about Muhammad, who was like a man of war. And then they go through this. You see, it can't be Jesus. It can't be Jesus because Jesus didn't wage war. It has to be about Muhammad. And then all the Muslim viewers go, wow, really? This has to be about Muhammad. And they don't bother to tell you that they took out the word God.
I'm staring at the Hebrew text right now. And they would have to change the text. I mean, it's pretty clear in the text.
Yeah,
they replace it with an ellipsis.
Yeah, so they put ... where it's Yahweh.
Oh, my
they
word.
leave that out, and they say it's talking about Muhammad. Would you think that's bad? If you're reading some commentary and so on, and they took a verse right out of Isaiah 42, they took out something, they put ... and said this is actually about Muhammad, and then you look it up, and it's actually Yahweh there. Would you think that's a good idea?
Well, what's even hysterical is grammatically it can't be an ellipsis. Because you have like, and then you have a man of war. Like what?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the logical grammatical question. What is like a man of war?
Muhammad.
Yeah, except...
That's the argument, right?
That's the argument.
And they get that by literally taking God out. Notice the methodology. We want to take God out and put Muhammad in. We want to take God out and put Muhammad in. What an amazing group of apologists out there preaching Islam when they're willing to resort to this. Should tell us. Yeah, I would say it tells us something about them, but when it happens so frequently, I have to start thinking that maybe it tells us something about the religion.
Well, that's almost like more like shirk than anything else. They're removing God.
And again, they do this. They do this over and over. When it says the Lord came from such and such, and they name some place, they'll take that out and say it's actually it's talking about Muhammad coming. And so this happens over and over again. When it says Sela there, which was a city of the Edomites, they say that's actually talking about a mountain in Medina, right? Now they don't realize apparently that it talks about a Jewish king going and conquering it. Right? The Jewish king didn't go down to Medina and conquer Medina. He went and fought the Edomites. The Edomites weren't down in Medina. Guys, look at a map. Please look at a map before you use these silly arguments. All right.
But I got the nail in the coffin. Lastly, real quick.
All right.
And it's this. That if you go and look at Isaiah 42, the beginning of it, it is quoted. So this chapter is quoted in the New Testament explicitly in Matthew chapter 12. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show you real quick because it literally tells you in the New Testament who this passage is about. And it's Matthew 12, starting in verse 15. Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there. And when he followed him, and he healed them all and ordered them not to make him known. Mm-hmm. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet Isaiah, which we just read. Now it actually quotes Isaiah 42 right in the text of Matthew 12. Behold my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved with whom my soul was well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. Take that, Hebrew Israelites. He will not quarrel or cry aloud, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will hope. Take that, Hebrew Israelites. Not only that, if you look at the other parts of Isaiah 42, they're alluded to with quotations without saying this is from Isaiah in Luke chapter 1 and Luke chapter 2 as well. So there's further evidence it's all about Jesus.
A couple things right there. So one, notice how this works. Historically, Muslims will put forward their passages that are supposed to be about Muhammad, but then people actually start reading them and catch on that this can't be anything about Muhammad. So for years it was Muhammad's mentioned in Deuteronomy 18:18, the prophet like Moses, and then everyone goes and reads the passage and realizes that according to the passage, Muhammad can't possibly be a prophet. For years, Muslims will go to John chapter 14. God's going to send the comforter. Then people actually start reading, wait a minute, there's no way this is talking about Muhammad. It's talking about the Holy Spirit. Jesus specifically says that he's talking about the Holy Spirit. So are you calling Muhammad the Holy Spirit? Of course you guys are, because you love to deify Muhammad, right? But then people catch on that you're deifying Muhammad, and then they point it out, and then you're embarrassed, and so you kind of start going to other passages. Well, now the latest one that's being passed around is Isaiah 42. And the reason that people go there is because just lots of people aren't familiar with it. So you keep going and as soon as the refutation of this one becomes widely known, they'll find some other passage they can completely distort and misapply. Why? Because that's what the religion is based on. So they go to Isaiah 42. Now think about all that, and then they'll say in the video, oh yes, this is talking about Muhammad being a man of war. How'd they get that? By taking the name of God out and inserting Muhammad there, right? They'll say that a place like Sela is actually in Medina, not realizing that anyone who looks at a Bible map knows exactly where Sila is, right? We know where that is. It's got nothing to do with Medina, right? So they're completely, massively distorting everything. Why? Because they understand that their audience is ignorant and doesn't know any better, and that they can deceive and manipulate them. That's why they just don't care. Think about it. If 500,000 Muslim viewers watch this video and don't know any better, and then I come along and say, hey, you just deified Muhammad. You just took out the name of God and put Muhammad in there. You not only are you lying, you're also calling Muhammad God. Most of those Muslims aren't going to watch my video. So most of those Muslims will think, wow, what a great argument. What a brilliant argument. This is proof. Allahu Akbar. This is the proof of Islam, right? So they'll do that, right? But eventually, over time, people will start to catch on. But notice all the problems. One, it's clear that this passage has nothing to do with a prophecy about Muhammad. Two, if it's a prophecy about anyone, according to the book of Matthew, this is a prophecy about Jesus. This is a prophecy about Jesus. And here you'll want to say, but they didn't get it. They understood it wrong. Too bad. Your Quran tells us to judge by the gospel. That's what your Quran says. Quran chapter 5, verse 47 tells the followers of Jesus to judge by the gospel. We open the gospel, and what do we find? We find that this is about Jesus. So are you telling us not to judge by the gospel? So you're telling us to disobey Allah? If we judge by the gospel, we have to judge that this is about Jesus, not about Muhammad. So that's the second problem, and the Islamic dilemma there, that if you want to tell us to reject that passage, you're telling us to reject the Quran simultaneously. Also notice that it's going to be a light to the Gentiles. What do Muslims tell us? They tell us, Jesus was only sent to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He's only sent to Jews. He's not the religion for other people. What does this passage right in the book of Matthew say? The book of Matthew, that's where you're getting the claim that Jesus is only sent to the Jews, right? That's where you're twisting that passage to make it sound like Jesus only came for the Jews. What does the book of Matthew say? For the Gentiles too, right? You see the problems here? You see, guys, I don't know, the Muslims who are watching, I don't know what it will take for you to realize you cannot trust the people who are telling you what to believe. You can't trust them. You can't trust them. You have a professional class of deceivers whose sole job in life is to keep you in a state of spiritual darkness, to keep you from seeing the truth. And anything they say, no matter what they do, if they deify Muhammad, if they lie, you just don't care. You keep mindlessly believing what they say. And then, of course, you find yourself in a state of spiritual darkness. Why? Got to do something about that. All right, any final thought? Wait, let me read this comment real quick, and then we'll have final thoughts. Conscious Love says, you guys need to stick to your expertise. You're extremely intelligent, but you did not study conspiracies like you need to. We need to go study all these conspiracies, guys. We need to learn the 9/11 conspiracy much better. We got to study and find that the Jews are behind everything, and that the Jesuits are behind everything, and that everyone is behind everything, and that there's big conspiracies. Guys, I don't know why you're telling us to study conspiracies, because the people who do these conspiracies are obviously so good at it that we could never catch on. So it's just hopeless. We just have to believe the conspiracies without any evidence, because we just can't catch on. The evidence is too well hidden by these geniuses who are conspiring against us. All right.
That's right.
Sort of final thoughts before we close out. I'd like to get Jeff here. Any ideas on, is there anything we can do as far as moving forward, especially as Christians who are in contact with lots of other Christians in the world today? What is there that we can do right now? Because you see, there are a lot of bad ideas going around.
Hey, can I block all the anti-Semites now?
Yep, absolutely block every last one of them. I never want to hear from them again.
No,
I was joking.
You can block anti-Semites. You guys because you wanted to use your.
I wanted to use the comments, but now, yeah, block every last one of them.
But now, good night, anti-Semites.
Bye-bye. They'll be back on their 11th. I actually got one by a guy today who said, David, why do you keep blocking all my channels every time I bring this stuff up? But think about that comment. Block all of my channels. This is a guy who knows he has 12 different accounts, let's say, so that he can go in there and start bringing up his conspiracy theories in every single video. And as soon as you block him, he comes in with another account. But he's, David, how can you keep blocking all my accounts? That's hilarious. These guys are hilarious.
Off for this one. I'm
block all those losers.
By the way, people were asking for the next episode of Boom Boom Room, and I'll let you go.
Oh, okay. So you're going to go ahead and post that. First of all, how do we respond to people? I think we need to understand how we, as followers of Jesus, are supposed to deal with evil. The way we're supposed to deal with it is the gospel. Mm-hmm. So if I have a group of people I don't like, then maybe I have just that much more of a responsibility to deal with them in a Christ-like manner and to give the good news to them. I think that's the first thing we need to deal with is Jesus never taught us to play shoot 'em up at all with any group of people. And so that's what your unsaved Jewish person needs. I mean, that's one part of it too. The other part is that for Christians, the outward tone of my skin is not what God's real interested in. Jesus came to save souls, and they don't have a melanin level to them.
So his primary concern is not the level of melanin in your skin.
That's right.
So the Hebrew Israelites got it wrong. The white supremacists got it wrong.
Absolutely.
Man, a lot of wrong people out there.
I mean, I guess those were the two things that were, I think, critical for us as believers as we look through this through a biblical worldview. Those are the things we have to really factor in right away.
Yeah, of all the things you could be worried about in another person, like the amount of melanin or the shape of the person's eyes or the shape of the person's nose or something like that, for that to be your top priority in whether you view the person as a threat, that is so incredibly stupid that, I mean, if it would almost make me ashamed to be a human being that there are so many human beings that think this way.
I do want one other thought. I have Jeff Kran's refrigerator magnet sayings. Came from when I used to do Bible studies. You cannot experience the victory of Christ by adopting a victim mentality. That's a Jeff Kran refrigerator magnet saying. That's not the way to get at.
So no victim mentality.
No victim mentality.
I agree with that, by the way. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, even if it's true that you've been victimized by some, or your community's been victimized by some, that can't become the mentality. It has to be, I'm going to go out and succeed in spite of past victimizations and stuff like that. Because otherwise, you just get in a position of, if you sit around and view yourself as a victim all day, then you kind of
self-defeating.
Yeah. All right, Slow Kev, any final thoughts?
Let's record this video, man.
Oh, yeah, we're about to, as soon as we wrap up here, again, for those of you who tune in later, as soon as we wrap up here, we're recording a discussion on Black Hebrew Israelism and its relation to the recent attack in New Jersey. Now, by the way, look at this. You see this? You see these likes and dislikes? I almost never get 35 dislikes while the live stream is going. It will happen afterwards. It will happen afterwards when other people come along and watch, and we'll eventually get to that. But that is a lot of dislikes, because normally the people who are watching during a live stream are people who watch me regularly and stuff like that. And so you get a couple. But because we're saying, hey, don't come up with really stupid reasons for going out and slaughtering people, or for ignoring the attacks once they happen because of something someone did 2,000 years ago. No, disproportionate number of dislikes, right? How dare you guys say that? That's some sick stuff. That's why I'm happy. That's why I'm happy Vocab is back there busily blocking you guys, because I really, really don't like you. With that said, as Jeff was just pointing out, what if you do? What do you do if you really don't like someone? I'd say you guys need the gospel. You guys really need the gospel. You need the gospel. You need to learn to love Jesus and obey his words and obey his command to love everyone, even people you regard as your enemy. And loving in a biblical context means you want what's best for people. And so if you think, hey, going out and slaughtering people's okay because of something, some rabbi wrote, centuries ago, you're a pretty sick person and you need some help. And so you instead of sitting around on your websites all day looking at your conspiracy theories, you might want to spend some times reading the words of Jesus. Spend the next 2 or 3 years of your life. It's worth it. Spend the next 2 or 3 years of your life reading the words of Jesus instead of focusing on your conspiracy websites, because you need that. You need a good cleansing from your sickness because you're sick. All right.
I remember you said that you're going to get so tired of these anti-Semites that you were going to have a Jew on every day.
Yeah, I actually did that, right? Because it always interests me because I'm straightforward about like my thinking process, right? Like I'm actually, as a person, if you leave me alone, I will sit around and read philosophy all day. That's what I will do. That's what I will do if no one's messing with me, right? So if we're talking about stuff I wanted to do in apologetics, I'm far more interested in the objections of atheists and responding to the arguments of atheists, right? So that's, if I were, out doing apologetics, that's what I would be doing. But I kind of respond to whoever's running his mouth most, or whoever's sending the nastiest comments, or whoever's insulting the most, or sending death threats. And historically, that tends to be certain Muslims, right? So my natural inclination is, if you're saying, hey, I'm going to rape your wife and I'm going to kill your mom and slaughter your mom and do all this, and you're saying all this nasty stuff to me, it doesn't occur to me to blast back at you in kind and to start saying, well, no, I'm going to rape your mom, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't occur to me to do that. It does immediately occur to me to go after your prophet, right? It immediately occurs to me to go after your prophet. And so that's probably 85% of the reason I've been going after Muhammad in the more brutal fashion that I've gone in. It's just, it's keyboard jihadis who are sending the nastiest comments. What I find interesting is people have been following me for years. They should catch on that I'm kind of like this. So if you really don't like Jews, I have no idea why you'd start sending me all of these comments freaking out about Jews, because I am the sort of dude who will start having a Jewish sidekick on with me every single day. And that's just what I would do, right? So anyway, guys, you need to learn to think a little bit more clearly, because I will not hesitate to blast stupid ideologies. And you guys who, massive conspiracy theorists, you've got one of the dumbest ideologies I've ever seen in my life. So again, hit the Gospels, learn, cleanse your mind, and stop being stupid and crazy. All right, guys, we're closing out. Guys, if you want to hear more from Jeff, I know whenever we go live, I end up just running my mouth, especially when people are commenting and stuff like that. And even if I have some guy beside me, I'll just end up running my mouth a disproportionate amount. But Jeff has a channel where he posts his content. So if you are interested in these issues, a link to his channel is in the description box. And yes, as we pointed out, Doctrine for the Block, that's in early February. So if you're anywhere near Phoenix and you want to come, I'll be there. Jeff will be there. Vocab will be there. Sam Shamoon will be there. We'll be giving some presentations. So catch us then. Jeff, anything else they need to know about you, like website or anything other than your YouTube channel? Good spot.
YouTube channel is a good spot, and just kind of getting started, so I'm learning my way around. But I hope to keep improving.
Well, if you want to improve on YouTube, you are with the right people.
All right.
We can help you along. Matter of fact, when we're out here in February, we should maybe sit down, do a little coordinating.
Sounds good.
We'll do it. All right. Catch you all next time. We will be live on Vocab's channel tomorrow night at 7:00 p.m. Unfortunately, with Hader Shamoon, he's over there. We're still trying to rescue him from imploding. His channel's garbage. His live streams suck, but we still try to help him out. So, we'll be here with Sam tomorrow. See you then. And we should have a video posted before then on the Jersey attack. All right, catch you all later.
Leonardo DiCaprio, John Bon Jovi, John Travolta.